Our guest today is a rising political star. She is very successful because she understands the basics of getting ahead in politics, which is doing an outstanding job where you are. Our guest today took over the office, and following her election, bang, within weeks, she was in the headlines saying taxpayers were not getting their refunds because of foul-ups in the office. And she was right. She has since implemented numerous changes to improve efficiency and make the office more user-friendly. One thing you can count on with our featured speaker today, you will get record earnings from the county treasurer's office. Our guest today truly is a multifaceted person. In addition to her public service, she is an attorney and holds a PhD in counseling and psychology from Loyola University. Her counseling focused on helping troubled teenagers. Entering politics, she ran for the county board and won. And then our guest today won re-election. She has also been very effective in fighting for women's rights. In the private sector, she has her own law firm. In the public sector, she is an elected official who is both tough-minded and an innovator. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome to the City Club of Chicago, the Cook County Treasurer, Maria Pappas. Maria? It's all yours. Sure be.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I'm going to take the liberty of changing the title of the speech a bit. It's Paranoia in Government. I'm going to switch that to Neurosis. But before I get on with my speech, I would like to acknowledge a few people in the room who've been very instrumental in my life, and two of them happen to be at the head table with me. In the early days when I first got on the Cook County Board, I had two people that I could call any time of the night or day who clearly understood what I was saying and really backed me up. And I was really sort of like this bad adolescent that I had been counseling years before, and they were trying to tame this wild stallion on the board. So it's Mary McDonald, who was like a mom to me. Mary, stand up. The truth be told, Mary and I at 4 in the morning would get on the phone and I would say, Mary, this is what I'm going to try on Phelan today. You think it will work? And she would say, yes, it's going to work. And Dick Siebel, who's now a judge. Dick. And on a personal level, I think that no matter what you do in this lifetime, it's important that you keep your artistic or musical side alive and well. And I'm very privileged to have as my guest today John Regas, who is an internationally renowned designer, who's now doing $22 million homes and came back to do my little apartment. John, please stand. And if anyone knows the whole story, it's my friend of 32 years who came from Oklahoma in June of 1972 when I arrived from West Virginia in June of 1972. And we were both living in McClure Court, and one day she said to me, you know, I found this new store and I think we ought to try it. And we were both really a little hillbilly behind the ears and probably like midnight cowgirls. And she said, I want to take you over to Saks. And I said, Mary, how do you spell Saks? Mary Mulieris, stand up. And last but not least, in my last election, a man soon to be 97, Louis Pappas, showed up in my office and said to me, you know, before I die, I want to see my name on the first floor of the county building. And so I'm going to tell you how we're going to win this election, because I understand politics, and I've been around for 95 years, and I understand what it's like out there, and we've got to raise some money. Louis got started with the original Marianne Baking Company, and his job 50 years ago was to go out into every Greek restaurant through then the old Lou Couturus, give loans to these restaurants so they could get on their feet. So the campaign consisted of 2,500 Greek restaurants countywide, Louis walking in with me at all hours of the day, me having bookmarks, running around to the tables, and then him going over to the owner and saying, remember 30 years ago, we're here to collect, we're not having a fundraiser, write a check. So Louis, stand up. At 97, so we're going to, I've made him a Deputy Cook County Treasurer. He actually has business cards which say Deputy Cook County Treasurer. So if you really have a problem, now you know who you can get in touch with. I'm sort of plagued by what Jay mentioned, which is my original sort of psychological background. So the topic being neurosis, what's that about? I was trained in my early years by a student of Alfred Adler. And Adlerians have always believed that you wake up in the morning, and unless you have a life plan, unless your index, your frame of reference tells you how to operate, you can't really figure out what you're going to do during the day. So everyone has a life plan, and the Adlerians say, how do you figure out what someone's life plan is, who they really are? Because the older you get as an adult, the more masked someone's life plan is, because they're more neurotic. So the Adlerian psychologist or psychotherapist would always say to the client, what are your first 6 early childhood memories? And the Adlerian always knows that it really doesn't make any difference what the memories are, only that you recall them, because they then become your frame of reference. So I am sharing with you today a couple of early childhood memories. I grew up in the only restaurant across from the only hospital in Wheeling, West Virginia. And it was noon hour rush, and all Greeks work in the restaurants, including the kids. And for some reason or another, a lady falls out the window of this hospital. And I was 6 or 7. When you get a recollection, it always has to be before the age of 8. So I run to the kitchen, and I say to my mom, Mom, someone just went out the window. She said, it's lunch hour. I've got all these orders I've got to get out. Really, Maria, go count how many people are coming in and give me a report later on. Long story short, I physically pull her to the front of the restaurant, and I say, look, and she sees this sight. She then calls the ambulance to come and get this person. What's that about? What did that memory possibly be about? Neurosis. Someone who says there's something wrong here. If there's something wrong, I got to get somebody and me to try and fix it. First memory. Neurosis. You're dealing with somebody who looks at these situations and impossible situations, says, I got to fix this. I got to figure out how to do it. Second recollection. After much cajoling, my father purchased a piano for me. And in those days in West Virginia, he was terribly frightened or fearful that I would become a musician. This was the family curse. I had a cousin who was in New York in the Metropolitan Opera. And they were absolutely terrified that I would be her genetic match. And this would be a terrible thing for a young kid to leave West Virginia and end up as a musician someplace. So I said, Dad, I want a piano, I want a piano. Long story short, he buys a piano for $10 from the Wheeling County Jail and puts it in the basement. Well, the problem with the piano was that most of the keys didn't work. So I would go down there every night and play this soundless instrument. And it was really a kid who was obsessed with trying to figure this out. Let me see if I can make it work even if there's no sound. So one day, he bought me a new acrosonic Baldwin. And I sat and mastered a piece. And I played the piece, and I played the piece again, and I played the piece again. And this is the early recollection. I hollered to my office, Mom, do we have any tissues? Yeah, they're over here. So when I get tissues. Those, before I had my LASIK surgery, I had glasses. So behind my glasses, I take these two tissues. And my mother still has a picture of this. And I'm playing the piano with these two tissues behind my glasses. She comes in the room, she says, what are you doing? I said, well, Mom, I was just trying to figure out if something ever happened and I couldn't see if I could play the song anyway. Significance. Both of those recollections are about trying to fix something. So you're dealing with, the neurosis here is, good side of the neurosis. Give me a mess, I can fix it, I feel like I belong in the world, I feel at home in the world, I can handle things. Downside, if it can't be fixed, all the things that go with being neurotic. Neurotic, can't sleep, can't eat, a little under the weather, bad hair day, you name it. So I was, in many ways, the perfect candidate for the Cook County Treasurer's Office because it needed fixing. And my two really dear friends, both John Stroger and John Daly, knew that. Because we had had lots and lots of conversations, and the truth be told, I think that if you were to go back and get their early childhood memories, you would find out the same sort of drive to do something or fix something in public life. So we walk in the first day, and as many of you know, yes, there was 30 million on the floor. Well, what we quickly found out by calling LA County, we're the second largest county in the nation, was that we had one mail opening machine. LA County has 16 mail opening machines. So on 1.6 million parcels that we send bills out to twice a year, we had envelopes and stacks and trays and bins of envelopes. We now know that for any 4 to 6 week period during those 2 times of the year that we collect monies, there was 400 to 600 million on the floor. Telephone call, RFP, let's lockbox this thing. And Dick Siebel was calling for lockbox along with Mary McDonald probably 15 years ago on the county board. So having had that experience, the first thing I did was put the RFP out, and I'll give you some figures. What did it mean? 16 times a day, LaSalle Bank picks up at a post office box the payment, it's immediately deposited, and the results of which are the revenues under the prior administration went from 34 to 58 million. On the C fund, the earnings there from 38 to 45 million. And on the A fund, monies that go to taxing bodies, it's just the A fund, we went from 4 million to 27 million. Lockbox. I said, gee, the lockbox works. This is wonderful. I can fix this. I felt wonderful. Next thing, we have 5 satellites, 1 downtown office. We knew that the more people we could get out of the office, the better off we would be. So we were fortunate. We RFP'd it again and opened it up to 126 LaSalle locations, and people love it because they can go to the drive-in, and it's really interesting. I mean, I can walk down the street now and people that I don't even know say to me, you know, I went to the drive-in and paid my taxes. It's almost like if I've got to do it, at least it's become pleasurable. We were able, and I always say, please don't ever come to my office again. Incidentally, during the run, up until the due date, you usually have collected on 1.2 million parcels. It's unheard of, but right now, and the reason so many people from my senior staff are here, due date is March 1st. We are exactly 97,000 payments short on the 1.2 million. So to have gotten that money together so quickly is really a credit both to LaSalle and to my senior staff that helped me put it together. We implemented a general ledger and a cashiering system, which was sort of by the seat of our pants, because we came in December 1st of '98. That had to be implemented by '99, and it was a tough going. And there were times when I couldn't fix it and we weren't sleeping. The staff was putting in 16-hour days, and there's a joke in the office that the combined total weight loss of Pappas' senior staff is 225 pounds. People expect within getting there, shortly thereafter, they would have lost at least 10 pounds. When we walked in, we had 8 386 computers. Now, mind you, the county treasurer's office is a bank. We had 8 386s. We now have 200 586s. They're not fully networked, but we're getting there. We're happy about that. We have a website, and you've probably read recently that having put the known and unknown heirs out on the website, it's exhilarating. On Monday, or actually Thursday, we're doing Japanese talk radio, Paul. This somehow or another got on the international wire. Somebody published every Irish name in Ireland. The Irish news media are calling us and saying, you know, is Fitzpatrick on there? Is McFadden on there? So that's been a lot of fun. We've gotten at least 100,000 foreign hits on the website. We went through an exhausting audit. I'm happy to say that we survived that, but that was one other thing that we were able to fix. In public life, it's not just fixing things. One of the joys of this office, especially for me coming out of a psychological background, is that you really have the opportunity to work on fixing people, whether they're staff or people who are just coming through the office. And I'd like to share a couple of stories with you. And I have a way of joking with people in my office to sort of make them feel like, you know, I need you here. You walk by, and this gal says, Barbara, how are you? To say the least, right, Laura? She's a treasure. I've got diabetes, and I've got an ulcer on my leg. I go by the next day, and in front of 20 other people, I say, Essex, they cut your leg off yet? Treasure, how could you talk to me like that? But she's still there and working, you see. I've got another gentleman who was born physically disabled. His arms and hands are about up to here. He learned the computer. I gave him a computer. I gave him 3 computer classes. He passed at the 99th percentile. Last week, I had 2 people who are 28-year in the treasurer's office, 60s and above, both of whom lost 40-year-old children. So I sort of had this double funeral in the office last week that really affected the whole office. So I went downstairs, and the day after the funeral, Mrs. Chu was sitting at her desk, and I said, Mrs. Chu, what are you doing here? She said, well, I was afraid if I didn't come back to work the next day, you'd fire me. So Mrs. Chu, go home. Get out of here. This place isn't worth it. And she left, and if you ever want to see this note, she just wrote me actually one of the most loving notes I've ever gotten from anyone. Where's Lee Gallagher? Where's Lee? Lee, stand up. Lee Gallagher has been in the treasurer's office for 16 years. He works the one machine that's left in the mailroom. Thanks for standing, Lee. He works the one machine that's left in the mailroom. But Lee has a very interesting physical history. So, you know, you walk through, you're trying to manage billions of dollars, get it in the bank, get the interest up. And here's Lee. He's got all these oxygen tanks down there because he has this lung problem. So, you know, I go by and I say, and all the, you know, it's become a loving way of letting him know that we care about him. We say, everybody says to him, I say, Gallagher, how many oxygen tanks did it take you to get through this place today? So it's sort of an amusing way, and I think all of you find that in your business, that you can let people know that you care about them. So that's sort of the aspect of fixing people. We've lost some I haven't been able to fix. I had a young gentleman who was alcoholic, earphones, head on backwards, tattoos when I came in, and I sat him down. He reminded me a lot of myself, and I straightened him out, got him in a white shirt and tie, moved up to the accounting department, was doing famously, and I think slipped back onto the wagon and came into the office about 3 weeks ago and said, this place is a dump, you're a terrible manager, I hate it, I want to work on the back of a truck. I never want to see anyone in here again. It's awful. And he went on and on and on and on. And I knew I couldn't carry him over the line. I knew that the alcohol and his neurosis had gotten the best of him. And I got to tell you, I really felt badly. And I think those are the things you can't fix. What couldn't I fix in terms of things in the office? We lose roughly 11,000 phone calls a week. Why? We have 13 operators. The county building was not built to be wired for all the computers and all the phone systems. The board's in the process of correcting that. By the end of the summer, you will be able to call my office, just like you call American Express, pump in your PIN number, and a voice at the other end will tell you exactly what it is that you've paid or owe. So we're happy about that. That's tough, though. That's something you can't fix, and you just groan about when you get terrible letters and people telling you how awful your phone system is. Refunds, the Achilles heel of the office. Even though we have automated to a great extent, the one thing I have not been able to fix and I'm hoping to fix is the refund area. What's a refund? Louis Pappas gets a bill for $1,000. He reads it improperly and sends me $1,500. There is no system in place, automation-wise, to send him his $500 back immediately. So, right now, on last year's collection, we are manually processing certificates of error. In other words, people who didn't send in their white little homeowner exemption to the assessor, and refunds. We've got roughly 270,000 that we're going to process manually this year. And that's just not one sheet of paper. That's the proof and all the documentation that goes with it. So all the employees who are no longer processing the mail, even though we've reduced our head count by 20, are now in this refund area. And we're hoping to correct that with a re-engineering study that we're in the process of doing. I'll tell you a funny story about my own not being able to fix something. I was so happy when we got the lockbox going and we really were doing our first billing. And I was sitting at my apartment and I got a phone call. And this guy at the other end of the phone says, are you Maria Pappas? And I said, yes. And he said, you know, I'm in Bridgeport and we own a meatpacking company. I said, okay, yeah, and he said, you know, it's snowing out there, and I just looked out the window, and you are the treasurer, aren't you? And I said, yeah, I am. He said, your bills are in the street. I said, my bills are in the street. I said, my bills can't be in the street. He said, no, they're in the street. I said, well, I thought this was a prank phone call. I said, what do you do other than this meatpacking thing? He said, I'm a student at DePaul University. I'm in law. I said, would you do me a favor? I said, if you're for real, would you put a bunch of those bills in a brown paper bag and deliver them to Water Tower Place? He said, no problem. I'll be over in a taxi. So I go on about the news. My husband's downstairs exercising. And all of a sudden the doorbell rings. Doorman says, Ms. Pappas, you have 2 paper bags down here. I said, oh, wow, this is getting real. So I go downstairs, I get the bags, I bring them up. Start to open them. Sure enough, property tax payment bills that were supposed to be in the mail. Hundreds of them. So I panic. I say, it's over. You had the audacity, Pappas. I'm writing my own headline. I'm writing my own epitaph. You had the audacity to criticize another elected official. You can't even get the bills out. How are you going to explain this to anybody? My husband comes upstairs from exercising. 2 senior staff had beepers at the time, and I dispatched Peter Farrow and Jim O'Connell and my husband, who now comes upstairs. I have 2,000 bills with snow on them scattered all over the floor of the apartment. And I have deduced that this happened in certain suburbs only, but I haven't figured out why. So I said, get to I forget what it was, 37th and something in Bridgeport, and get out there in the snow and see what, this guy only brought 2 bagfuls. I mean, we've got to figure out what's these guys, all of them head down there. And for sure, all these bills were laying there. So long story short, we get the vendor on the phone. Mike O'Neill's going to appreciate this from the union. Mike, where are you? There he is, Mike. I get the vendor on the phone. I said, who's the union driving this truck? He said, you forget you privatized this and it wasn't a union driver. I said, you've got to be kidding. This is a double whammy. The guy who picked the stuff up, when he put the latch on the back of the truck, he decided he was going to stay in Bridgeport for a little bit on his way to the vendor. Hit a pothole, the latch off the back breaks open, and 20,000 bills go out the back. Well, fortunately, after we picked all this stuff, we were up all night. You want to talk about neurosis? You want to talk about not being able to fix something? We were sick. We stayed up all night. We talked to MIS. They reran the bills. It was interesting, but a newspaper reporter called us 4 days later, and the then press secretary came in and said, I want you to know, I told him the truth. I said, what was the question? He asked whether or not the Cook County property tax bills had been hijacked in Bridgeport. And I said, what did you say? He said, I told the truth. I told him no. Can I leave now? We've learned a lot about things we can't fix. One day, these are all stories that didn't make the news, $3.5 million worth of live checks, roughly 2,500 pins, 2,500 persons' checks were delivered from Skokie to our office. As you know, when you walk in on the right, you set the bills down, they're then supposed to go into a safe. Somehow or another, those $3.5 million worth of live checks, stamped, paid to the order of the then depositing bank, disappeared. We couldn't figure it out. And that's when I immediately ordered the security cameras. To make a long story short, we reconstructed it. We wrote letters to the taxpayers. They rewrote checks. It was a nightmare, but that's when I said, enough already. We've got problems with refund checks disappearing. People are falsifying name changes. We need to get cameras in here. We got the cameras in, and lo and behold, we were able to fix it because the next run, $4 million worth of checks were delivered. And the then security guard, I had the chiefs, I had Peter and Mike upstairs on the cameras, and no one knew that they were there. The guy at security, the drop was made by Armour, and he walked out of the office thinking no one else was in it, left the front door open, and there were the live checks. And of course, Mike and Peter rushed down. He was fired on the spot, and we saved it that time, but we escaped the news on that one too. Another story. I had, there's things you just can't fix. I mean, all of you are in business to a certain extent, and stuff happens, so to speak. I was this summer invited probably to the highlight of my professional career, which was going to the Aspen Institute, which is sort of a heady think tank sort of organization. And on a panel was Tom Friedman from the New York Times, and Gergen, and the guy who just did the AOL deal. And I was really into this globalization and the economy, and I told my staff, do not beat me. Do not beat me unless you're going under. Unless it's absolutely a tragedy. Please do not call me. I have been waiting to be around these people all my life. I got invited. This is a big deal for me. And in the middle of the speech, off goes the 1-800-SKY pager, and it says, Treasurer, Jesse Jackson wants to talk to you right now. So I looked at my husband. He said, well, I'll tell you what happens. I got up, I got on the phone. I said, Jesse, this is Pappas, what's the matter? Why are you selling Minnie Stroud's house? I said, who's Minnie Stroud? Why are you talking? He said, this is morally wrong. I said, moral? You're talking to me about morals? What are you talking about? Morals? Morals? How about the law on my side, Jesse? What are you talking about? He said, you're selling this lady's house. I said, get your facts together. Trust me, go get your facts together. We don't just sell people's houses. It's because they don't pay. Fact of the matter is, and one of the things we haven't been able to fix, because there's a treasurer's office, an assessor's office, and a clerk's office, and a recorder of deeds office, on any given pin, there's property information all over these various offices flying around in paper, so that you can't pull up on a screen and say, Minnie Stroud, for the last 30 years, this is what happened on your property. And by the time we were able to put together the documentation to show that she hadn't paid for 5 years straight, he had headlined me. He was out on the west side talking about, Pappas is morally improper. And I begged him. I said, Jesse, listen, you got your facts wrong. So we had a few words about morality when I returned to the city of Chicago. Let me go on in some of my conclusions. 51 years old. Life's a lot different at 51 than it was at 22 when Mary and I arrived here, respectively, from West Virginia and Oklahoma. I can truly say that I have learned in this neurosis and the re-engineering of government that I cannot fix it. I understand that. It's bigger than me. Government and the private sector, if you're going to be on Earth and be one of the human beings that sort of walks around and suffers from chronic human imperfection. We're sort of suffering from a chronic human imperfection. I can take it forward, I can lockbox it, I can move it this way, I can move it that way. But to fix it totally, heaven is in heaven. We're not there yet. And I think I've learned that well from John Stroger. With all due respect, I must say. And what do I mean by that? We go at it in private, and we really love each other. I mean, we go at each other like a cat and dog in private. And I tease him and I say, John, you are so successful in politics because nobody's threatened by you. You're a little overweight, you stutter, And he goes, Pappas, you could be just like me, but you gotta understand the process. I said, do I have to gain a little weight? He says, yeah, you gotta gain a little weight too, Pappas. This guy's so honest. In his heart, he really doesn't think that he is doing anything other than trying to fix this. And I tease him, and I say, John, you're in the wrong office. They should have made you Pope so you could go out and fix everything and save everyone. And I've learned a lot. He has stayed the steady course. My second conclusion, I'm not the treasurer. What do I mean by that? My husband is probably to the right of combined Tom Roser, the Trib Editorial Board, Hollinger International, and any Republican that you can imagine. I mean, my husband is so to the right. So anything that you would say to him about government is Peter. Guess what? We did an extra $44 million in interest. So what? You don't really think anybody cares, do you? I mean, you don't think people care that you're the treasurer, do you? Give that kind of money to a bunch of Democrats, they're just gonna spend it. You guys are all a waste. My brother came in town from West Virginia after, and had really never been to any of the political offices I was. He was in last Friday. His kids are thinking about going to university here, and he said to me, he walked in for the first time to the county building, he looked up and he goes, oh, you're the treasurer. He says, what do you do? I said, we collect money. He says, doesn't that cause you problems? He said, I mean, don't people get mad at you? Why do I say in my conclusion that I'm not the treasurer? You can't be in this and be so maniacal about the office you're in. There's another side of life. It could be Maria who, like it's Al Gore who, or whomever who. Maria who, tomorrow it's somebody else. The office goes on. All you do while you're there is sort of try and fix it. I think it's important in this It's part of not being the treasurer to know that in your personal life, bringing to government, trying to fix things in people and feeling bad if I can't fix things in people. In my personal life, I try and fix things. So I'm starting more difficult piano lessons. Paul, I just came in 3rd in a triathlon, so I was really happy about that. And every night I test myself. Thank you. Yes. Every night I sort of test myself. Because you get in this, you can be out to dinner every night and schmoozing every night, and it really isn't worth it. What's worth it is your personal life. So I have this, Walter Mitty sort of existence where every night that I possibly can, I cook. And I cook, and I love cooking, so it's, can I fix this? And it's great because the food doesn't talk back, and the piano doesn't talk back. And the triathlon whole competition is, it's competing against myself. I mean, it's annoying if I can't do more than 5/8 in 20 minutes on the bike. So it's constant, can I fix this? Can I fix this? Other conclusion. Probably at the county level, the best thing that could happen long-term is that the 4 elected officials, myself included, become one, appointed by the president. There is a czar of property in Cook County who does it all. So you have a screen, and you know what's really going on with any piece of property. I'm going to conclude with a statement about someone coming into my office and saying something, and then something that happened to me last night, and I'll take questions. But Dan Degnan came to my office one day, and he said, you know what, I finally figured you out. I said, really, what's that? He said, this place is one big psychological experiment for you, isn't it? Understand? It's kind of true. What he was picking up on was that I was looking at it from the point of view, can I fix it? Can I fix it? Pretty good. He picked up on his boss's neurosis. Lastly, I was in church last night. John Regas called me, and he said to Peter and I, you have to come to church. Something bad is going to happen to us. It's pre-Lent. I'm going away next week. We've got to go to church and pray. So he convinced Peter and I we should go to church. So we went to church, and everything the actual service is in ancient Greek. But for those who don't speak ancient Greek well or don't understand everything, there's a translation in English. So I'm running through the translation, and of course in my fix-it way, wondering whether or not that it's translated properly. And I hit on this verse, I'm sort of speed reading, and I hit on this verse from the service last night, which has 2 words in it that I immediately pick up. One is accountant, and the other one's ordinances. And I said, oh my God, that's going to be part of my speech. So in conclusion, this is what happened in church last night. This is St. Basil speaking. This is about the neurosis in government and whether or not you can re-engineer it. Lord, Lord, who have delivered us from every arrow that flies by day, deliver us from anything that lurks about in the darkness, including bills in the street. Accept the lifting of our hands as an evening sacrifice. Make us worthy to traverse the time of night blamelessly, untouched by evil, and redeem us from every disturbance and fear caused by the devil. And you know, in government, there's always some sort of enemy out there. Grant contrition to our souls and concern to our minds about the accounting at your awesome and just judgment. Nail down our bodies with your fear and deaden our earthly members so that even in the quiet of our slumber, we may be enlightened by the contemplation of your ordinances. This last night I said to my husband, I said, somebody's writing the speech here. Keep us away from every indecent fantasy, nobody's stealing refund checks anymore, and harmful desire, taxpayers aren't falsifying name changes. Awaken us in the time of prayer rooted in your faith and thriving in your instructions. The county board says this is what you're going to get. Through the goodwill and goodness of our Son, now and forever and unto ages of ages. So that's what it's about, and I'll take questions. Thank you.
I need her to have a race where there's like big problems so I can work 24 hours a day and lose weight. So my question is, what are your future plans?
You know, Kathy, at 51 it's different. And that's a very dangerous question because my staff is here. And you know, your staff doesn't want you to get bad headlines, and they're running to higher ground to find higher ground for you. I'm very happy where I am. I think I need a minimum of 4 more years to fix it. And I'm in an age and stage in my career where I know that you move up at this stage when you're needed, and there's a huge problem. And when that call comes for the second time around, I'll move. And in the meantime, I think we're doing pretty good down there. I think we're going to do it again. And
You gotta get the microphone so we can hear you on the television. This is a chance to be discovered.
This is what I need. Madam Treasurer, interesting commentary about Democratic politics in our city, our county, our state. There's actually very few women with real political power who are holding elected office. Probably one of the few. Why do you think that is?
Yeah, I'm going to be very frank about that. That's what I call the list. Now, and the list is, and if you look at the list, let's talk about the list. Jane Byrne, Miriam Santos, Carol Mosley-Braun, Lolita Dietrichson, Ori Paczynski, who else?
Doing pretty good.
That's the list. That's pretty scary. So I look at that list and I say, what's the common denominator in that list? I'm here. It's nice knowing you guys. I want to go here. You put me here, but now give me this. Look at that list. And unfortunately, there becomes a message there that I'm not satisfied with what I've got, and I don't want to be on that list. Anybody coming into it, I would very clearly tell them how to stay off the list.
There you go. State your name, please. A couple more questions, and we got to make sure we save the taxpayers' money.
And don't come to my office to pay. Do not come to my office.
Hi, Marge Peckel.
Hi, Marge.
Hi. I think you've really done a phenomenal job in reorganizing that office.
Oh, thank you.
I really mean it, and I admire your high energy.
That really is a credit to the staff. I went out and recruited the brightest and the best, and they have really been through some. I am not easy to work for, obviously, you can tell by this speech, and they've really, I'm so proud of them. I wouldn't tell them that twice, they might let up, but I really am. Great staff.
My question is, I was just wondering, what do your employees think of this video equipment where you can spy in and see how they are working? How do they feel about having that type of equipment on their environment?
Well, I'll tell you, it's changed. Initially, they didn't like it. Now, they love it. And the reason that they love it is because they know that it's running 24 hours on film. So if something's wrong, like the recent indictments on the refund checks, they don't get blamed for it. See, they can never be falsely accused. So I've really got good workers right now. When you've got a good worker, they don't care if the CIA's in there. It doesn't make any difference. They just keep on working. And I think that's what's happened in there. And I want to tell you just briefly one other thing. We went through a very difficult time where I required everyone to become computer literate. The first daily memo that I got from somebody was D-A-L-E-Y memo, daily memo. I said, we got to get classes in here and spell check, you know.
Might not have been a mistake.
Spell check. Yeah.
Any other questions? Okay, let's give Maria a great round of applause. We have, remember, beware of Greeks bearing gifts, but not beware of Greeks receiving them. By the way, before I give Maria her well-earned award, we have Walter North, stand up, the Chief Financial Officer of the City of Chicago. Maria, we've had a lot of people in Chicago, Cook County politics who've often used the word fix, but seldom have they quoted St. Basil. So on behalf of the City Club of Chicago, I present you with a one-year membership to the City Club and something extremely desirable, and again, will go under anyone's radar on any ethics ordinance, a City Club of Chicago mug.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you, dear. And if you think...
When we got started together, tell them.
It's true confession time. You think it's tough working for Maria, try working with her. Governor State University, early 1970s, Maria Pappas with the long hair and Paul Green with long hair.
Started
Meeting adjourned.
Thank you, Paul.